The champagne glass exploded against marble as I watched my son-in-law feed a birthday cake to his mistress in my pregnant daughter's bed. Through hidden cameras, I saw Trevor kiss the woman who wasn't Emma. The same Emma working a 12-hour nursing shift at that very moment, believing her husband was working overtime for their future. The future he was destroying $8,750 at a time, stolen from her account to fund this betrayal. But what made my 67-year-old hands shake wasn't just the affair. It was watching him show Sophia our grandchild's nursery, laughing as he told 8 witnesses how he'd convert it back to an office once family situations get resolved. Our unborn grandchild, Emma's miracle baby, reduced to a family situation, blocking his access to her trust fund. Trevor thought he was playing a naive old man who'd built a real estate empire by luck. He thought Emma was too intellectually overwhelmed to notice her inheritance disappearing. He thought pregnant women were easy targets. In 72 hours, he'd learn what happens when you steal from Hamilton women. You want to see justice? Real justice. The kind that uses courtrooms instead of fists, legal documents instead of violence, and family money to destroy the man who tried to steal it? Hit subscribe, because what I did next will change how you think about revenge forever. Some gifts come wrapped in consequences, and mine was surgical. 3 months earlier, I stood in my office overlooking downtown Sacramento, watching another successful closing through floor-to-ceiling windows. Hamilton Properties had grown from a single-family flip in 1995 to a $250 million empire spanning 3 states. Not bad for a kid who started with a $5,000 loan from his father-in-law and a beat-up Ford pickup. Kate found me there that evening, still reviewing contracts at 9 p.m. After 42 years of marriage, she knew that look. "You're thinking about succession again," she said, settling into the leather chair across from my desk. She was right. At 67, I'd been considering which pieces of the business to hand down, and to whom. Our daughter Emma had the intelligence, but preferred her work as a pediatric nurse. Trevor, however, had shown genuine interest in real estate since marrying Emma 3 years ago. Trevor Caldwell seemed like the answer to my prayers. Marketing director at TechFlow Solutions, sharp with numbers, respectful, and genuinely devoted to Emma. I'd spent months teaching him the fundamentals, property law, market analysis, negotiation tactics. He absorbed everything like a sponge. "You should see him with the Valencia Street project," I told Kate that night. Spot-on insights about demographics. Emma chose well. The Villa Hamilton had been my gift to them as a wedding present, transferred through an irrevocable trust worth $2.8 million. Nestled in the hills above Folsom Lake, it represented everything I'd worked for. Security, beauty, family legacy. Emma called it their forever home, the place where they'd raise children and build memories. Those children were finally coming. Emma, now 29 and 6 months pregnant, glowed with anticipation. She'd transformed the villa's spare bedroom into a nursery, painting soft yellow walls and assembling a crib that took Trevor and me 3 hours to figure out. We'd laughed until our sides hurt, trying to interpret those Swedish instructions. "Your grandson's going to need engineering skills just to sleep," Trevor had joked, and I'd felt that familiar surge of paternal pride, not just for Emma, but for the son-in-law I'd genuinely grown to love. Trevor had access to everything: the villa, our family investment discussions, even confidential details about upcoming Hamilton Properties deals. I'd given him key codes, alarm systems, the works. Trust, I'd learned from 45 years in business, was the foundation of any relationship worth having. "He's family," I'd told Kate when she gently questioned such open access. Family protects family. The irony would hit me later with surgical precision. By October, Trevor had become my unofficial protege. He'd attend property viewings with me on weekends, offer insights about marketing angles for new developments. His background in tech marketing proved invaluable for reaching younger buyers. We'd grab coffee afterward, talking shop and future plans. "I want to build something lasting," he'd told me during one of those conversations. "Something Emma and the baby can be proud of." I'd started drafting paperwork to bring him into the company officially. A small partnership stake, nothing dramatic, but enough to give him skin in the game. Mitchell Brooks, my attorney for 20 years, had been preparing the documents. but there were signs I should have caught earlier. Trevor's phone habits had changed. Always face down, silent mode during family dinners. He'd started working late 3 or 4 nights a week, coming home tired and distant. Emma mentioned it during one of our weekly lunches. "He's just stressed about the promotion at work," she'd said, but I caught something in her eyes. Doubt, maybe, or disappointment. The villa visits had increased too. Trevor claimed he needed quiet space for important client calls, and I'd encouraged it. "Use it as your office," I'd said. "That's what family property is for." Kate had mentioned seeing him there during odd hours, Tuesday afternoons when he should have been at work, Sunday mornings when Emma thought he was at the gym, but I'd dismissed her concerns as overprotectiveness. After all, what kind of man betrays the family that's embraced him completely? I was about to find out. The first crack in my trust came during a Tuesday morning coffee with Mitchell Brooks. We'd been reviewing the partnership documents when he mentioned, almost casually, seeing Trevor at the Hyatt Regency downtown. "Lunch meeting, I assume?" Mitchell said, though it was barely 11 a.m. and he was with a striking brunette. Didn't look particularly business-focused, if you know what I mean. I didn't know what he meant. Not yet. But the detail stuck. Trevor had told Emma he'd be at the office all day Tuesday, handling a crisis with their biggest client. When I'd called TechFlow's main line later, purely on impulse, the receptionist mentioned Trevor had taken a personal day. One lie. Small, maybe explainable. But in my business, small lies often hide bigger problems. I started paying attention. Trevor's overtime had increased to 18 hours per week, according to Emma's complaints. But the smell of unfamiliar perfume lingered on his shirts, something floral and expensive that wasn't Emma's usual vanilla and sandalwood. His credit card statements, which I glimpsed during a family financial planning session, showed charges at restaurants I'd never heard him mention. The villa security logs told a more troubling story. Trevor had visited 6 times in 2 weeks, always during hours when Emma was at work. Our property management system tracked every entry code use, time-stamped and recorded. Tuesday at 2:15 p.m., Thursday at 11:30 a.m., Saturday at 4:45 p.m. while Emma was at her baby shower. "Maybe he's planning a surprise," Kate suggested when I shared my concerns. But her voice carried the same doubt I felt growing in my chest. The breakthrough came when I decided to inspect the villa myself. I'd been meaning to check the HVAC system anyway. November in Northern California still required heating, and I wanted Emma comfortable during her pregnancy. I found Trevor's coffee cup in the sink, still warm. His cologne hung in the master bedroom, mixed with that same floral scent I'd noticed on his clothes. The bed was unmade, sheets twisted in ways that suggested more than a business nap. But the real evidence was in the trash can. A receipt from Giuseppe's, the Italian place downtown. Dinner for 2, $127, paid with the joint account Trevor shared with Emma. The date matched one of his supposed overtime nights. I sat in my car outside the villa for 20 minutes, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. 30 years building a business based on trust and relationships, and I couldn't read the character of my own son-in-law. That evening, I made a decision that would change everything. I called Sterling Investigations, a discreet firm I'd used for due diligence on major deals, professional, thorough, and completely confidential. Their retainer was $8,500, a bargain for peace of mind. "I need background surveillance on someone," I told Jack Sterling, their lead investigator. "Complete discretion, family matter." Jack didn't ask questions. In his business, family matters were often the messiest kind. Within a week, I had my answer. Trevor Caldwell was having an affair with Sophia Manning, a 26-year-old marketing coordinator from his own company. They'd been together for 8 weeks, meeting twice weekly at various hotels around Sacramento. She believed Trevor was separated but waiting for the right time to finalize things. The photographs Jack delivered were clinical in their clarity. Trevor and Sophia entering the Marriott, leaving the villa hand in hand, shopping together at an upscale jewelry store where Trevor purchased a tennis bracelet, charged, according to the credit monitoring, to his account with Emma. But the final piece of intelligence made my blood run cold. Sophia's birthday was November 23rd, the day after Thanksgiving. According to Jack's sources, Trevor was planning a special celebration at his family's place in the hills. My villa. Emma's sanctuary. the future nursery for my grandchild. The audacity was breathtaking, but it also presented an opportunity. Trevor thought he was playing chess, moving pieces around a board I couldn't see. What he didn't realize was that I'd been playing a different game entirely, one where patience, preparation, and legal precision mattered more than momentary passion. I'd built a $250 million business by staying 3 moves ahead of the competition. Trevor was about to learn that lesson the hard way. The trap was set. Now I just needed him to walk into it. Jack Sterling's full report arrived on a Thursday morning, delivered to my office in a manila envelope marked confidential. 87 pages of surveillance photos, financial analysis, and behavioral patterns that painted a devastating picture of systematic betrayal. Trevor's relationship with Sophia Manning went deeper than casual infidelity. According to intercepted communications, legally obtained through public Wi-Fi monitoring, he'd been feeding her detailed information about our family's financial situation. She knew about the trust fund, the villa's value, even Emma's pregnancy timeline. More disturbing were the text messages Jack's team had captured. Trevor discussing exit strategies and maximizing the settlement. Sophia asking about community property laws in California and whether pregnant wives get more in divorce. They weren't just having an affair, they were planning Emma's destruction. The financial forensics were equally damning. Trevor had been systematically draining the joint account he shared with Emma, transferring money to a separate account Sophia believed was their future fund. Hotel bills, restaurant charges, jewelry purchases, $12,300 in total over 8 weeks, all funded by my daughter's nursing salary and the monthly distribution from her trust. But the discovery that made my hands shake was hidden in the surveillance photos. Trevor had given Sophia a key to the villa, not just access codes, an actual key, copied from Emma's set. In one photo, she was laughing as she unlocked the front door, clearly comfortable in what she believed was her boyfriend's property. My property, bought with money I'd earned through decades of 18-hour days and calculated risks, intended as Emma's sanctuary, now serving as a playground for her husband's betrayal. I spread the photos across my conference table, studying them like battlefield intelligence. Trevor's arrogance was evident in every image, the casual way he guided Sophia through the villa's rooms, pointing out features like a tour guide showing off his estate. In one particularly galling shot, he was gesturing toward the nursery Emma had so carefully prepared, while Sophia nodded and smiled. The timestamps told their own story. Villa visits always coincided with Emma's hospital shifts. Trevor had memorized her schedule, planned his betrayals around her absence. The precision was almost professional. My phone buzzed. Emma calling for our weekly check-in. "Hi, Daddy. How's your Thursday?" Her voice carried the exhaustion of 3rd trimester pregnancy and 12-hour nursing shifts. She sounded vulnerable in a way that triggered every protective instinct I'd developed over 67 years of living. "Just reviewing some contracts, sweetheart. How are you feeling?" "Tired. Trevor's been working so much overtime lately, and I hate coming home to an empty house. But the bills won't pay themselves, right?" The bills. She thought Trevor's mysterious absences were about providing for their family. The innocence in her voice made my chest tighten with rage I hadn't felt since my father died. Is he taking care of himself? Eating properly? I think so. He comes home exhausted most nights. Falls asleep on the couch sometimes without even changing clothes. Without changing clothes because he'd been in hotel beds with another woman. Because he was too tired from playing house with his mistress to maintain pretenses with his pregnant wife. I ended the call with promises to bring dinner over soon, then immediately contacted Mitchell Brooks. If Trevor wanted to play legal games, he'd chosen the wrong family to target. "How quickly can you review the trust documents for Villa Hamilton?" I asked. "Give me an hour. What am I looking for?" "Moral turpitude clauses. Anything that might invalidate beneficial interest based on conduct harmful to the family." Mitchell's pause was telling. After 20 years handling my legal affairs, he recognized the tone that meant someone had crossed a line they couldn't uncross. "Chuck, what's going on?" "Trevor's been using the villa to entertain his mistress. I need to know our options." "Jesus. How long has this been going on?" "Long enough. And Mitchell? They're planning something for her birthday next week. I want to be ready." Within 2 hours, Mitchell called back with news that felt like divine intervention. Section 14.3 of the trust agreement contained a moral turpitude clause I'd forgotten about, language he'd included as standard protection against beneficiaries who might damage family reputation or misuse trust assets. Any behavior constituting adultery, fraud, or conduct materially harmful to family unity could result in immediate termination of beneficial interest. With proper documentation and legal notice, Emma could retain full ownership while Trevor lost all claims to the property. "It's iron tight," Mitchell confirmed, "but you'll need evidence that meets court standards." I looked at Jack Sterling's surveillance photos spread across my desk. Evidence won't be a problem. The pieces were falling into place. Trevor thought he was orchestrating Emma's downfall, but he'd actually engineered his own. Mitchell Brooks arrived at my office Friday morning carrying a briefcase full of legal ammunition. His normally calm demeanor carried an edge I'd rarely seen in our 20-year relationship. "The moral turpitude clause is more comprehensive than I remembered," he said, spreading documents across my conference table. "Section 14.3 doesn't just terminate Trevor's beneficial interest. It allows for complete recovery of any trust assets he's misappropriated. Define misappropriated. Unauthorized use of trust property for non-family purposes, like entertaining mistresses in villa bedrooms." The language was clinical, but the implications were devastating. Trevor could lose everything: his claims to the villa, any future distributions, even reimbursement for improvements he'd made to the property. But first, we needed ironclad documentation of his violations. "What's the standard of proof?" I asked. "Clear and convincing evidence. Photos, videos, financial records showing misuse of joint assets for extramarital activities. The kind of evidence that would stand up in family court." I smiled for the first time in days. That won't be a problem. What Mitchell didn't know yet was that the villa's security upgrade I'd mentioned to Trevor wasn't just about replacing old cameras. I'd installed a comprehensive surveillance system, hidden cameras in every room, audio recording in common areas, motion sensors that triggered alerts to my phone whenever someone entered the property. Everything was legal. California's single-party consent law meant I could record activities on my own property without notice, especially when investigating potential criminal misuse of assets. Trevor had unknowingly consented to surveillance by accepting access to the villa. But the trap I was setting required more than passive observation. I needed Trevor to demonstrate his intentions clearly, without ambiguity that might create legal complications later. "I have an idea," I told Mitchell. "What if Trevor voluntarily demonstrated his belief that the villa was his to use as he pleased?" "You mean entrapment?" "I mean providing opportunity for authentic behavior to reveal itself." That afternoon, I called Trevor with an offer he couldn't refuse. TechFlow Solutions had been struggling with a major client presentation, and I suggested he use the villa as a private retreat to prepare his materials. "Really? You'd let me use it for work stuff?" The eagerness in his voice was almost pathetic. Here was a man whose pregnant wife was working 12-hour nursing shifts while he planned birthday parties for his mistress, and he still craved my approval. "Consider it family privilege," I said. "Emma's been worried about you working so much. A quiet environment might help you focus." "That's incredibly generous, Chuck. I really appreciate the trust." Trust. The irony was so thick I could taste it. "Just treat it like your own place," I added, knowing exactly how he would interpret that permission. Within hours, Trevor had called Sophia to share the amazing news. Jack Sterling's team intercepted the conversation through their wireless monitoring operation. "We can have your party there," Trevor told her. "It's perfect. Private, elegant, and totally ours for the weekend." Totally ours, as if a $250,000 trust asset belonged to him and his mistress. The next phase required careful choreography. Emma needed to be away during Sophia's birthday celebration, both for her protection and to ensure clean surveillance footage. I convinced her to visit her sister in Portland for Thanksgiving weekend, a trip she'd been postponing due to pregnancy fatigue. "The fresh air will do you good," Kate encouraged, "and Trevor can use the break to catch up on work." Emma agreed reluctantly, concerned about leaving Trevor alone during a stressful project deadline. Her compassion for the man destroying their marriage made my chest tighten with protective fury. Meanwhile, I coordinated with Jack Sterling to ensure comprehensive documentation of the villa party. Professional-grade cameras would capture every moment, Audio equipment would record conversations, and financial monitoring would track every purchase made with Emma's money. "This is the most thorough domestic surveillance I've ever conducted," Jack admitted. "You sure you want this much detail?" "I want enough evidence to end this cleanly," I replied. "No appeals, no negotiations, no mercy." The beauty of the plan was its simplicity. Trevor believed he was getting away with the perfect crime, using family resources to betray family trust. What he didn't realize was that every choice he made created deeper legal exposure. By Wednesday, the trap was completely set. Emma had left for Portland, believing she was giving Trevor space to work on his presentation. The villa's hidden surveillance system was active and recording. Jack Sterling's team was positioned for external monitoring. Mitchell had prepared all necessary legal documents for immediate filing after the evidence was collected. I spent Wednesday evening in my study, reviewing property law precedents and calculating the financial damages Trevor had inflicted. Beyond the $12,300 in misappropriated joint account funds, there were opportunity costs, property depreciation from unauthorized use, and potential punitive damages for breach of fiduciary duty. But the real calculation was emotional. How do you quantify the damage a man does when he destroys his pregnant wife's sense of security? When he uses her family's generosity as a weapon against her? When he turns the home meant for their child into a playground for his selfish desires? The law offered mechanisms for financial recovery, but justice required something more personal. Trevor needed to understand that actions have consequences, that trust, once broken, carries a price beyond money. Kate found me there at midnight, still surrounded by legal documents and surveillance reports. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. "Once you pull this trigger, there's no going back." I looked at a photo Jack had taken earlier that week, Trevor and Sophia entering the villa while Emma worked a double shift at the hospital, saving lives and earning money her husband was stealing to fund his betrayal. "He made the choice," I said. "I'm just documenting the consequences." Thursday morning, Trevor called to confirm his weekend plans. "I really think this retreat will help me nail the presentation," he said. "Can't thank you enough for the opportunity." "Just remember," I replied, "the villa represents everything our family has worked for. I trust you'll treat it with the respect it deserves." "Of course. You have my word." His word, from a man whose marriage vows apparently meant nothing. In 36 hours, Trevor would throw a birthday party for his mistress using my daughter's money in my villa, while my pregnant daughter visited family in another state. He thought he was celebrating his cleverness. He was actually hosting his own destruction. Thanksgiving weekend arrived with the crisp November air that makes Northern California perfect for outdoor celebrations. Emma had left Thursday morning for Portland, hugging Trevor goodbye with the trusting innocence of a wife who believed her husband was sacrificing social time for career advancement. "Don't work too hard," she'd whispered, her hands resting on her pregnant belly. "The baby and I need you healthy." Trevor's response, "Everything I do is for our family," made me want to break something expensive. Friday afternoon, Jack Sterling called with the first surveillance report. Trevor had arrived at the villa at 2:30 p.m. with Sophia and a trunk full of party supplies. They'd spent 3 hours decorating the living room with balloons, candles, and a banner reading, "Happy 26th birthday, beautiful." "They're using the master bedroom as a staging area," Jack reported. "Looks like they've set up gifts on Emma's vanity table. Professional catering truck just arrived. Giuseppe's Italian. Same place from the receipt you found. Giuseppe's." The restaurant where Trevor had taken Sophia for their first dinner date charged to the account he shared with my pregnant daughter. The symbolism was perfect. He was using Emma's money to recreate romantic moments with his mistress in Emma's home. The guest list was small, but telling. 8 people total, including Sophia's co-workers and a few of Trevor's TechFlow colleagues who apparently knew about the affair. The kind of crowd that would remember this party, spread stories, make Emma's humiliation public knowledge within their social circle. By 6 p.m. I was positioned in my vehicle outside the villa's gates, monitoring the live surveillance feed on my phone. The technology was remarkable. Crystal clear video and audio from multiple angles, automatically uploaded to secure servers for evidence preservation. What I witnessed over the next 4 hours exceeded my worst expectations. Trevor wasn't just hosting a birthday party. He was performing ownership, giving Sophia and their guests a guided tour of his property while explaining how he planned to upgrade the place once some family situations got resolved. The audio was devastating. Trevor discussing property values with Sophia's friends, explaining how Northern California real estate was basically a money machine and how he was learning the business from the inside. He showed them Emma's nursery preparations like they were temporary inconveniences. "We'll probably convert this back to an office," he said, gesturing dismissively at the crib Emma had spent hours assembling. "More practical for our needs." Our needs. As if he and Sophia were the legitimate couple and Emma was the obstacle to their happiness. But the moment that made my hands shake with rage came at 8:45 p.m. Sophia opened her gifts in the master bedroom, the same room where Emma had picked out paint colors and arranged furniture with excitement about their growing family. Trevor had given her a tennis bracelet worth $3,200, purchased with funds from the joint account. "This is just the beginning," he told her as she fastened the bracelet. "Once things are settled, we'll have access to the full trust fund. 8 figures, according to the old man." 8 figures. He'd been calculating Emma's inheritance, planning to steal her family's generational wealth to fund his new life with Sophia. The party continued until nearly midnight. Dom Perignon champagne, $650 per bottle, 3 bottles total, $1,950 charged to Emma's credit card. Catering from Giuseppe's, $4,800 for 8 guests, again funded by Emma's nursing income. Party supplies, flowers, gifts, every detail of Sophia's celebration paid for with money my daughter had earned working 12-hour shifts while Trevor betrayed her. The surveillance captured everything. Trevor and Sophia kissing in front of family photos, making plans for future weekend getaways, discussing which furniture they'd replace once they had full control of the place. Sophia even tried on Emma's jewelry found in the bedroom dresser, while Trevor laughed and encouraged her to see how it looks. At 12:30 a.m., the guests finally left. Trevor and Sophia retreated to the master bedroom for what the surveillance mercifully recorded only as audio, sounds that violated every sacred boundary of marriage and family trust. They fell asleep in my daughter's bed, surrounded by the nursery preparations for my grandchild, while $8,750 in unauthorized charges accumulated on accounts Emma thought were being managed responsibly by her devoted husband. Saturday morning, I called Mitchell Brooks with a voice that surprised me with its steadiness. "I have everything we need," I said. "Video, audio, financial records, witness testimony." Trevor just provided a complete confession of his intentions regarding the trust fund. How explicit. He told 8 people about plans to access Emma's inheritance after their family situation gets resolved, used trust property to entertain his mistress while discussing conversion of the nursery for their future use. It's textbook evidence of intent to defraud. Mitchell's pause was brief but significant. "That's not just moral turpitude, Chuck. That's potential criminal fraud, conspiracy to steal trust assets." I'd built my business by staying within legal boundaries, but Trevor's behavior had crossed lines I didn't even know existed. He wasn't just having an affair. He was conducting financial reconnaissance for a planned theft of generational wealth. "How quickly can you file the papers?" I asked. "I can have everything ready by Monday morning, emergency hearing Tuesday if necessary." Sunday evening, Trevor called to thank me for the villa access. "The retreat was incredibly productive," he said. "Really helped clarify my priorities." His priorities, like stealing from pregnant wives and converting nurseries into offices for mistresses. "I'm glad it was useful," I replied. "Sometimes we need quiet space to discover who we really are." Monday morning would bring legal papers that would destroy Trevor's life with the same methodical precision he'd used to plan my daughter's betrayal. Justice, I'd learned over 67 years, wasn't about emotion. It was about consequences. Sunday morning, I sat alone in my home office, surrounded by 127 pages of surveillance evidence that could destroy a man's life. 43 video clips showing systematic betrayal. 89 financial records documenting theft of family assets. Documentation so comprehensive that Trevor's guilt was beyond dispute. But staring at Emma's pregnancy photo on my desk, I felt something I hadn't experienced in 30 years of business: doubt. Not about Trevor's guilt. The evidence was overwhelming. He'd used our family's trust and generosity as weapons against us, stolen Emma's money to fund his affair, and planned to defraud her inheritance while she worked exhausting shifts carrying his child. My doubt was about Emma. How do you tell your pregnant daughter that the man she loves, the father of her unborn child, has been systematically destroying her life? How do you present evidence that will shatter every assumption she's made about her future? Kate found me there at 10:30 a.m., still reviewing the surveillance footage. "You haven't slept," she observed. "I've been thinking about Emma, about what this will do to her." Kate studied the monitor showing Trevor and Sophia in our daughter's bedroom, using family property for their betrayal. Her expression hardened in a way I'd rarely seen in 4 decades of marriage. "What will do more damage?" she asked. Learning the truth now, or discovering it later when Trevor's plans succeed? She was right, but that didn't make the decision easier. Emma trusted completely. Her husband, her family, her belief that people who love you protect you rather than exploit you. Shattering that trust felt like participating in Trevor's destruction of her innocence. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma in Portland. "Having wonderful time with Sarah. Trevor says work retreat going well. Feels so lucky to have a husband who works so hard for our future. Love you, Daddy." Works so hard. The cruel irony made my chest tighten with protective rage. Emma believed Trevor's absences represented sacrifice for their family, when they actually represented the systematic theft of their security. I called Mitchell Brooks to confirm our legal strategy. "Papers are ready for filing," he reported. "Emergency motion for trust asset protection, financial account freezing, and immediate eviction from villa premises. We can have him serve it tomorrow morning." "And the criminal charges?" "That's Emma's decision. The evidence supports theft and fraud charges, but she'll need to file the complaint as the injured party." Emma would face another impossible choice: whether to send the father of her unborn child to prison for stealing from their family. Trevor's betrayal would force her into decisions no pregnant woman should have to make, but my responsibility was clear. I'd built Hamilton Properties by protecting assets from people who would misuse them. I'd accumulated wealth over decades to provide security for my family. Allowing Trevor to continue his theft would violate every principle I'd used to build our fortune. More importantly, Emma deserved to make her own choices about her future, informed choices based on truth rather than Trevor's lies. She had the right to know that her husband saw her pregnancy as an opportunity for exploitation rather than a blessing to protect. Sunday afternoon, I made the final decision. Tomorrow, Trevor would face consequences for his actions. The evidence was overwhelming, the legal strategy was sound, and the moral case was clear. But first, Emma needed to come home. She needed to see the evidence with her own eyes, understand the scope of Trevor's betrayal, and decide for herself how to respond. I called her sister Sarah in Portland. "I need Emma to come home immediately," I said. "Family emergency. Don't tell her what it's about, but get her on the next flight." "Is everyone okay?" "We will be," I replied, "after tomorrow." Emma arrived home Sunday evening, her face tight with concern about the family emergency that had cut her Portland trip short. Kate and I met her at our house rather than the villa, neutral territory for a conversation that would change everything. "Is someone hurt?" she asked before she'd even sat down. "The baby's been kicking non-stop since Sarah told me to come home." I'd rehearsed this moment, planned the gentle approach that would reveal Trevor's betrayal without traumatizing our pregnant daughter. But looking at Emma's worried face, her hands protective over her belly, every careful word disappeared. "Sweetheart, I need to ask you something," I began. "Have you noticed changes in Trevor recently? Different behavior? Unexplained absences, unusual expenses?" Emma's expression shifted, not surprise, but something closer to relief, like someone who'd been holding her breath for weeks finally getting permission to exhale. "Why are you asking, Daddy? Just answer honestly. What have you noticed?" She was quiet for 30 seconds that felt like hours. When she spoke, her voice carried exhaustion that went beyond pregnancy fatigue. "Trevor's been different since I started showing. Distant, secretive. He used to share everything about his work, but now he just says he's handling things. And the money. What about the money?" "Our joint account. I deposit my nursing paychecks, but the balance never seems to grow. When I ask about expenses, he says he's managing our investments and not to worry about details." My heart sank. Emma had been watching her security disappear, trusting that Trevor was protecting their future when he was actually stealing it. "Have you seen any evidence of what these investments might be?" Emma reached into her purse and pulled out a manila folder I hadn't expected: surveillance photos, bank statements, and what looked like a private investigator's report. "Daddy, I hired Coastal Investigations 8 weeks ago." The words hit like a physical blow. While I'd been planning to protect Emma's innocence, she'd been conducting her own investigation into Trevor's betrayal. "You knew?" I suspected. The hotel charges on our credit card, perfume on his clothes that I'd never smelled before, phone calls he'd take in other rooms. She opened the folder, revealing photos that matched Jack Sterling's surveillance. I needed to know for sure before I made any decisions about the baby's future. I stared at my daughter, 29 years old, 6 months pregnant, and conducting counterintelligence operations against her own husband while working 12-hour nursing shifts. The strength and strategic thinking were pure Hamilton family genetics. "How long have you known about Sophia?" "Since October 15th. Coastal got photos of them at the Marriott downtown." Emma's voice cracked and tears started forming. "I've been waiting for the right moment to confront him, but then we found out about the baby's gender and Thanksgiving was coming and I kept thinking maybe I was wrong." "You weren't wrong, sweetheart. I know. I've known for weeks. But knowing and accepting are different things." She wiped her eyes carefully, then looked up with steel in her voice. "What evidence do you have?" I shared everything: Jack Sterling's surveillance, the villa party footage, financial analysis of the joint account theft, audio recordings of Trevor's plans to access her trust fund. Emma reviewed each piece methodically, like a nurse documenting symptoms for diagnosis. But when she saw the video of Trevor giving Sophia the tennis bracelet in their bedroom, Emma broke. The tears came in waves, months of suppressed suspicion, betrayal, and terror about raising a child alone. She sobbed until her whole body shook, Kate holding her while I felt my heart shatter watching my pregnant daughter's world collapse. "He used our money," she gasped between tears. "The money I earned working double shifts while my back ached and my feet swelled, to buy jewelry for her." "I know, sweetheart. And the nursery. He showed them the nursery like it was a joke, like our baby was a joke." The tears turned to rage. "I painted those walls myself. I read to the baby in that rocking chair every night, telling them about their daddy who loves them." Kate handed her tissues while I struggled with my own fury. Watching Emma grieve the marriage she'd thought she had was harder than any business loss I'd ever faced. "There's more," I said gently. "The audio from the party. Trevor discussed accessing your trust fund after family situations get resolved." Emma went very still. "He's planning to leave us? Or force you to leave him with enough evidence to claim you were unstable. Either way, he's been calculating how to steal your inheritance." Something shifted in Emma's face, from victim to predator, the Hamilton genes asserting themselves. "So while I've been working myself to exhaustion, believing I was supporting our family's future, Trevor's been spending my money on his mistress and planning to steal my inheritance?" "That appears to be accurate." Emma closed the folders and placed both hands on her belly, quiet for several minutes. When she looked up, her eyes carried the same cold determination I'd seen in mirrors for 67 years. "I want him destroyed, Daddy. Not just gone. Destroyed. I want him to understand what it feels like to lose everything you thought was secure." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure about protecting my child from a father who would steal his nursery fund to buy tennis bracelets for mistresses. I'm sure about protecting our family assets from a man who sees my inheritance as his retirement plan." Emma Hamilton Caldwell was done being victimized. Trevor was about to discover what happened when you betrayed Hamilton family women. Monday morning, Emma insisted on being part of the final test. Against my protective instincts, she convinced me that she needed to see Trevor's character revealed in real time, not through surveillance footage or second-hand reports, but through direct observation of the man she'd married. "I need to know who he really is," she said, her hand resting on her belly. "Not the version I've been telling myself exists, but the actual person. For my baby's sake." We set up the meeting in my office conference room with hidden cameras Emma could monitor from the adjacent office. She wanted to hear every word, see every expression, understand completely who Trevor Caldwell truly was beneath the facade. Trevor arrived at 9:30 a.m., confident and relaxed after his weekend retreat at the villa. He seemed particularly pleased with himself, checking his phone frequently and smiling at messages I assumed were from Sophia. "Chuck, I have to tell you that quiet time really helped clarify my thinking," he said, settling into the chair across from my desk. "I've got some insights about integrating technology with real estate development that could be game-changing." Through the office intercom, I heard Emma draw a sharp breath. He was pitching business ideas while his mistress's perfume still lingered on his clothes. "I'm interested," I said, "but first, I want to offer you something more significant, a partnership opportunity." Trevor's eyes lit up with greed, so transparent it was almost embarrassing. "I'm planning a new development project," I continued. "Luxury condominiums in downtown Sacramento. High-end units targeting young professionals. The kind of marketing challenge that would suit your background perfectly." "That sounds incredible. What kind of investment are we talking about?" "Initial capital requirement is $150,000. Not insignificant, but the returns could be substantial. 20% annual yield, conservatively." I watched Trevor's mental calculations, knowing Emma was watching too. He was thinking about her trust fund, about access to money he'd been planning to steal. "I'm definitely interested," he said. "What's the timeline for commitment?" "I'd need the funds within 2 weeks. Full partnership agreement with your name on the development company paperwork." This was the first test. Would Trevor propose using Emma's money without consulting her? "Would it be possible to source the investment from Emma's trust fund?" Trevor asked without hesitation. "I mean, as a family investment that benefits everyone?" Through the intercom, I heard Emma whisper, "Jesus Christ," under her breath. "That's an interesting idea," I said, "but trust fund distributions require Emma's explicit consent. Have you discussed major investments with her?" "Well, pregnant women can be sensitive about financial decisions. Maybe it would be better to handle the business side myself, then surprise her with the returns." Emma's gasp was audible even through the closed door. Her own husband had just called her sensitive for wanting input on her own inheritance. You know Emma pretty well after 3 years of marriage. How do you think she'd react to a major investment decision made without her input? Trevor leaned back, and I saw the contempt he'd been hiding for months. "Honestly, Chuck, Emma's great with nursing and family stuff, but she gets overwhelmed by complex financial strategies. She'd probably prefer to trust my judgment on investment decisions. That's what partnerships are about, right? Playing to each person's strengths." The intercom carried the sound of Emma's chair scraping against the floor. Through the glass partition, I saw her standing, both hands pressed against her belly, staring at the monitor in disbelief. "So you think Emma would be comfortable with you managing her trust fund distributions without consultation?" "I think Emma married me because she trusts my judgment about our financial future. She's got enough stress with the pregnancy. Why burden her with investment details she might not fully understand?" Emma's voice came through the intercom, barely controlled. "Ask him about the villa." "Speaking of stress," I said, following her cue, "Kate mentioned there were some noise complaints from neighbors over the weekend. Something about a party at the villa?" Trevor's composure faltered, a flash of panic quickly replaced by confident denial. "That's strange. I was there Saturday working on presentations, but it was completely quiet. Maybe the neighbors confused the dates?" "You're sure? No gatherings, no guests, no celebrations of any kind?" "Absolutely certain. I spent the whole weekend alone working on the tech flow presentation. Maybe someone else in the neighborhood had a party." Through the intercom, "Liar, fucking liar." Emma's voice was shaking with rage. "Actually," I said, "I've been thinking we might want to sell the villa. Real estate values in that area have peaked, and Emma might prefer something more practical for raising children. What's your opinion?" Trevor's reaction was immediate and telling. "Sell the villa? Chuck, that would be a huge mistake. That property represents everything your family has built. Emma loves that place. She'd be devastated to lose it." "But you just said she might prefer something more practical." "Well, yes, but not selling. Maybe renovating, converting some of the spaces for better functionality. The nursery, for example. We could redesign it as a multi-purpose room that works for children but could serve other needs as they grow older." The intercom carried the sound of Emma's footsteps pacing frantically. "Other needs? Home office space, entertainment area, whatever makes sense for our evolving family situation? You've given this considerable thought. I care about Emma's happiness and our family's future. Sometimes that means making hard decisions about what's truly practical," versus what's emotionally appealing. The door to the adjacent office opened and Emma entered, moving with deliberate calm despite the fury in her eyes. Trevor's face went white as he realized she'd been listening to every word. "Emma, what are you doing here?" "Learning about my husband's care for my happiness," she said, settling into a chair across from him. "Please continue explaining how you'd redesign our baby's nursery for your evolving family situation." Trevor's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "And I'm fascinated by your assessment of my intellectual capacity," Emma continued. "Please elaborate on how I get overwhelmed by complex financial strategies." "Emma, you were just explaining to my father how you plan to steal my inheritance and convert our baby's nursery into office space for you and Sophia Manning." Trevor's face went from white to green. He looked between Emma and me, calculating escape routes that didn't exist. "How long have you known?" Emma asked. Trevor tried one last manipulation. "Known what? I don't understand what's happening here." Emma pulled out her phone and played audio from the birthday party, Trevor's voice clearly audible. "Once things are settled, we'll have access to the full trust fund." "I understand perfectly," she said. "The question is whether you're going to keep lying to me or if you're finally going to tell the truth about what you've done to our family." Trevor realized he was trapped. But even then, he chose deception over honesty. Tuesday morning arrived with the weight of finality. Mitchell Brooks, Emma, and I arrived at my office at 7:30 a.m. to prepare for what Emma called Operation Consequence. She'd insisted on being present for Trevor's reckoning, despite my concerns about stress affecting her pregnancy. "He destroyed my marriage while I was carrying his child," she said. "I need to see his face when he realizes what that decision cost him." The conference table was arranged like a courtroom. Surveillance evidence organized chronologically. Financial records documenting theft. Trust documents highlighting violated clauses. And in the center, an elegant gift box wrapped with silver ribbon. Trevor's blessing for his betrayal. Emma sat beside me, outwardly calm but gripping my hand tightly enough to cut circulation. She'd barely slept, spending the night reviewing every piece of evidence, preparing for this confrontation. Trevor arrived at 9 a.m. expecting to discuss partnership opportunities. Instead, he found his wife, my attorney, recording equipment, and myself wearing expressions that promised no mercy. "What's going on?" Trevor asked, his confident facade cracking as he noticed the formal setup. "Sit down," Emma said quietly. "We need to talk." "Emma, why are you here? I thought you were in Portland." "I came home early. Family emergency." Her voice carried ice I'd never heard before. "You remember family, don't you? The people you promised to love and protect?" Trevor sat slowly, scanning the documents spread across the table. I watched recognition dawn as he spotted surveillance photos from Sophia's party. "I brought you a gift," Emma said, sliding the wrapped box across the table. "Something to commemorate your weekend retreat." Trevor's hands shook as he pulled the ribbon. Inside, eviction notice, divorce papers, and a complete portfolio of evidence documenting his betrayal. His face drained of color as he saw himself guiding Sophia through the villa, discussing plans for the nursery, calculating access to Emma's trust fund. "This is—" he started, then stopped, apparently unable to form words. "Legal documentation of adultery, theft, and conspiracy to commit fraud," Mitchell said formally. "Conducted on trust property, funded by joint marital assets, planned with intent to defraud inheritance distributions." Emma leaned forward, her pregnant belly resting against the table's edge. "Tell me about Sophia's birthday party, Trevor." "Emma, I can explain. I want details. The champagne you bought with our money. The bracelet you charged to my credit card. The bedroom where you celebrated with her while I worked a 12-hour shift believing you were advancing our careers." Trevor tried deflection. "You don't understand the pressure I've been under." "Pressure?" Emma's voice rose for the first time. "You want to discuss pressure? Try working double nursing shifts while 6 months pregnant because your husband claims he needs quiet time for career development. Try watching your bank account drain while trusting your partner is managing investments for your family's future." You were trying to steal my inheritance while convincing me I was too intellectually limited to understand financial decisions." Trevor winced at his own words thrown back at him. Emma pulled out her phone and played the audio from his conversation with Sophia's friends. "Once things are settled, we'll have access to the full trust fund," 8 figures, according to the old man. Explain once things are settled, Emma demanded. Trevor's silence stretched uncomfortably. I'll explain, Emma continued. You plan to either force me into such an unstable emotional state that I'd become an unfit mother, or manipulate a divorce settlement that gave you access to family assets. Either way, you saw my pregnancy as an opportunity to exploit rather than a blessing to protect. That's not true. Don't. Emma's voice cut like a blade. Don't lie to me anymore. I hired private investigators too, Trevor. I know about the hotel receipts. I know about the separate bank account. I know you've been planning this since I started showing. She stood up carefully, both hands supporting her belly. I also know about your Google searches for California divorce law pregnant spouse and challenging trust fund distributions mental incapacity. Were those part of your caring concern for my happiness? Trevor tried one final manipulation. Emma, please, think about the baby. We can work through this. I am thinking about the baby. Emma's voice carried absolute conviction. I'm thinking about protecting our child from a father who would steal their college fund to buy jewelry for mistresses. I'm thinking about ensuring they never learn that their daddy saw mommy's inheritance as his retirement plan. Mitchell opened a folder containing Trevor's settlement terms. You have 3 choices, Emma said, resuming her seat. First choice, sign these divorce papers waiving all claims to marital property, trust assets, and future inheritance. Return every stolen dollar within 30 days. Leave California within 30 days and maintain no contact except court-supervised visitation. You can't force me. Second choice, Emma continued without acknowledging his protest. Criminal prosecution for theft, fraud, and conspiracy. Public trial, media coverage, professional destruction, likely federal prison time, plus divorce under grounds of felony adultery, so you lose everything anyway while serving your sentence. Trevor stared at the documents, realizing his complete lack of leverage. Third choice, Emma said. I call TechFlow Solutions and every marketing firm in Sacramento to explain why their employee has been stealing from pregnant wives to fund affairs. Good luck finding work in this industry after that reputation follows you. What about my rights as the baby's father? Emma's expression softened slightly, not with forgiveness, but with pity. Your parental rights remain intact, subject to court oversight. But fatherhood is earned through behavior, not biology. You can start earning those rights by accepting responsibility for what you've done and demonstrating you're capable of putting your child's welfare above your own desires. I never meant for things to go this far. You planned this for months, Trevor. You memorized my work schedule to optimize your betrayals. You copied villa keys for your mistress. You researched legal strategies to steal my inheritance. None of that happened by accident. Mitchell slid the settlement agreement across the table. 72 hours to sign and comply, or we file criminal charges. Trevor looked at Emma one final time, perhaps hoping to see forgiveness or weakness he could exploit. Instead, he saw a woman who'd discovered her own strength through his betrayal. I loved you, he whispered. No, Emma replied quietly. You loved the idea of me, the trust fund, the family connections, the business opportunities. If you'd loved me, you would have protected what we built together instead of planning to steal it. Trevor signed the papers with tears streaming down his face, not tears of remorse, but tears of self-pity for getting caught. You have 72 hours to vacate the villa, Emma said. Don't test our patience by missing that deadline. As Trevor gathered his belongings and left, Emma remained seated, both hands resting on her belly. I don't feel relief yet, she admitted. Just empty. Relief will come, I assured her, after you've had time to process what you've been carrying alone. Emma had transformed from victim to victor through sheer determination and Hamilton family steel. Trevor would spend years regretting the decision to underestimate her strength. 6 months later, I stood in the renovated nursery at Villa Hamilton, watching my 3-week-old grandson sleep in the crib Emma had assembled while believing her husband was building their future together. James Charles Hamilton Caldwell, named for both grandfathers, though only one had earned the honor, was perfect in the way newborns are perfect, unmarked by the betrayals that had surrounded his conception. Emma had chosen to give birth with only Kate and me present. Trevor had called repeatedly from Nevada, demanding updates about the delivery, but Emma's phone stayed turned off throughout labor. He gave up the right to witness miracles when he decided to steal from them, she'd said between contractions, gripping my hand with strength that reminded me exactly whose daughter she was. The legal aftermath had been swift and thorough. Trevor complied with the settlement terms, barely. He'd returned $9,800 of the stolen funds, all he could raise through pawning possessions and borrowing from his own family. The remaining $2,500 was being garnished from wages at a Las Vegas marketing firm that had hired him without thorough reference checks. Sophia Manning disappeared from his life the moment she learned Trevor's inheritance access was protected by legal structures he couldn't breach. According to Jack Sterling's final report, she'd blocked his number after discovering the tennis bracelet was purchased with another woman's money. The bracelet itself was now evidence in Emma's legal file. But the real transformation was in Emma herself. The first month after Trevor's departure had been brutal. Emma cried herself to sleep most nights, grieving not just the marriage but the illusion of safety it had provided. Pregnancy hormones amplified every emotion until she felt raw and exposed, questioning every decision she'd ever made about love and trust. "I feel stupid," she'd admitted during one of our evening walks. "How did I not see who he really was?" "You saw who he showed you," I'd replied. "Manipulators are skilled at presenting false versions of themselves. Your mistake wasn't trusting, it was normal human behavior. His mistake was betraying that trust." Therapy helped. Dr. Sarah Chen specialized in trauma recovery for new mothers, helping Emma process the betrayal without letting it poison her relationship with her unborn child. Emma learned to separate Trevor's actions from her baby's innocence, understanding that James deserved love untainted by his father's character failures. The villa had been completely transformed. Emma erased every surface Trevor had contaminated, repainting walls, replacing furniture, reclaiming spaces he'd violated with his affair. The master bedroom became her sanctuary. Soft blues and whites, family antiques, windows that let in morning light unfiltered by painful memories. The nursery expansion surprised everyone. Instead of the modest room she'd originally planned, Emma created a beautiful suite with play areas, reading nooks, and built-in storage for the childhood she was determined to provide. She'd used part of her trust fund distribution, money now protected by ironclad legal structures Mitchell had designed. "I want James to grow up surrounded by evidence that he's wanted and cherished," she'd explained while painting elephant murals on the walls. "His father's choices don't define his worth." Emma returned to nursing part-time when James was 8 weeks old, arranging childcare through hospital colleagues who'd become surrogate family. The work she loved became therapy, caring for other people's children while learning to trust her own maternal instincts. Dating seemed impossible until Dr. Michael Patterson joined the pediatric staff. He was different from Trevor in every way that mattered. Quiet where Trevor was flashy, steady where Trevor was impulsive, honest where Trevor was manipulative. Most importantly, Michael showed genuine enthusiasm about James, seeing him as part of Emma rather than an obstacle to overcome. "He doesn't need replacing his father," Emma told me after their third date. "He needs meeting his father for the first time." Michael's background check was thorough, not because I didn't trust Emma's judgment, but because our family had learned the value of verification. Clean credit, stable employment history, references from colleagues who described him as the most ethical person they knew. Even Jack Sterling found nothing concerning in his investigative report. But the real test was watching Michael hold James for the first time. The careful way he supported the baby's head, the genuine wonder in his expression, the protective instinct that activated immediately. Trevor had never looked at his son that way. The trust fund restructuring was complete, protected by language Mitchell called bulletproof against future exploitation. New provisions required unanimous family consent for distributions exceeding $10,000, eliminated spousal claims for beneficiaries who violated family loyalty clauses, and established automatic inheritance protections for Hamilton grandchildren. "No one will ever exploit this family's generosity again," Mitchell had promised. Standing in James's nursery that Tuesday evening, watching my grandson sleep safely in the home his mother had reclaimed and rebuilt, I felt pride deeper than any business success. Emma had discovered strength she didn't know she possessed. She'd protected her child, preserved family assets, and built a foundation for the future that honored our values while acknowledging hard-earned wisdom about trust and verification. Trevor had taught us painful lessons about the price of blind faith, but Emma had taught us something more valuable. that love protected by wisdom was stronger than love without boundaries. James would inherit both financial security and emotional intelligence, wealth protected by legal structures and family bonds strengthened by experience. The boundaries we'd established weren't walls against love. They were foundations that kept love safe. And that, I realized, was the most important legacy any family could provide.